Okay, well, thank you all for being here, and thank you for those that are joining us online. We do get a larger crowd online. By the end of the week, we usually have about 300 people that are able to see this, so thank you all for joining us. Few announcements before we get started. Who traveled the farthest today? 2 hours. You get first pick at books. We have several to choose from. They're all free. This is What Are the Odds from Crack Addict to CEO by Mike Lindell. We've got Purpose-Driven Life. We've got Healing the Shame. We've got 1 Year Through the Bible. We've got Rediscover Church. I've got a whole case still of there you go, of the lowly ones. I've also got some Narcan, and I still have a couple Life Recovery Bibles. I've got another couple cases at home as well. And so Darlin's going to pass around the plate. If you're at home watching online, you can go to our website. If you're watching on Facebook, you can find the web link there and donate that way. What happens with that money? Well, everybody here is a volunteer. Nobody takes any money. What we do with that is the meal that we're going to have after this, the books that we give away, and we take those Life Recovery Bibles into the local jail. I'm out there every Thursday doing some pro bono counseling, and from a Christian perspective. So it gives them an opportunity to sort of get ahead of the game so that when they come out, they've got a connection to some folks. We give them information on our Recovery Church meetings, as well as the Celebrate Recovery that we do in the back on Friday nights, as well as some AA meetings in the area. We have AA on Sunday night and Wednesday night in the back, and at our other campus, it's pretty much every night of the week. And then down the road, there's 5 more at Midway Road Church of Christ, Monday through Friday. So a lot of options for recovery in the area, just in this little tiny circle here, and then, of course, the Bayshore Club. So take advantage of all that, and if somebody wanted any of that, please come get it. But Darla's going to pass around that plate, or she already did, okay. And then a couple other announcements. Obviously, we want to be in prayer for the people in Ukraine. We want to continue to lift up our friends and family in Haiti. They're having ongoing problems. The kidnappings have increased, and it's crazy. They're asking for $200,000 from a guy who makes $500 a year. So it's an insane situation, and we're trying to get back there, trying to set up a new medical clinic, but it's hard to do when you can't travel safely. So keep that lifted up as well, and keep Mike lifted up. We're just going to do another quick little prayer for Mike. Lord, I pray that you would just move in him, fill him with the Holy Spirit, Lord. Let your words be what he speaks, Lord. Anything that's not from you, Lord, seal his lips. But, Lord, let him tell a story of what you've done in his life, and let you be glorified. Let us be edified, Lord. And I pray that it would work in a mighty way in the hearts of those that hear it. In Jesus' name, amen. Come on up, Mike. So I've known Mike, I don't know, 12, 13, 14, how long? I don't know. 14, 15 years, maybe more. And we do Celebrate Recovery together. Came to Believe retreats. If you haven't been to one, there's another one coming up in May. Don't miss it. If you haven't been, I assure you, once you go, you'll know why I talk about it all the time, right? We work through all 12 steps over the weekend. You literally work all 12 steps in one weekend. So Mark's been, and he can tell you about it. If you haven't been, take advantage of this upcoming one. Also, we've got the upcoming Recovery Church retreat, and that's April 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. So go to the Recovery Church Movement website if you want to sign up for that. It's almost sold out. So if you want to go, now's the time to get logged in. Oh, you already go. Okay.
Yep. Good deal. In July, I'll be coming up on 14 years. Woo. Thank you. It's pretty interesting. I'll start off with, I hope, a little humor here. As I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and I said, it's pretty ironic that I'm sitting up here. When I was younger, I was the one that while you were in church, I was in the parking lot opening your cars and stealing stuff. So that's where Jesus has gotten me. This was in New Jersey, so don't worry, I wasn't the guy that did your car. So I grew up in Atlantic City, New Jersey, and it was projects, casinos, drugs, alcohol, pimps, prostitutes, And that's the environment that I was brought up into. My mother and father, well, my father was a drug dealer and a drug user, and my mother was a drug user as well. But as far as I knew when I was young, that they were trying to raise me the best that they could, as far as I knew, because after all, I was just a little kid. And until I started learning what drugs and alcohol was, what it was. And so that's how I learned to sell drugs from my family. And I learned that if I was robbing things and bringing it to the house, that my mom and dad would be okay with it, because after all, it was for the house and they needed it. So just a little background. I try not to give you like to qualify. My grandfather was an alcoholic. My mom and dad were drug addicts. And my other grandmother was a Catholic. So she used to drag me by the ear and I have to sit in the pews, hard chairs. So my view on God was very not good, because, like, after all, you know, what is there? I heard about it, but I never knew what it was about. So I had to wear a mask, because if I didn't join in with the gangs and if I wasn't doing things wrong, then I would have just been pushed over, taken advantage of, and possibly not alive. So this is how it was when I was younger. So I was addicted to marijuana. I say addicted because I robbed my grandmother and helped her look for the money so I can have marijuana. So yes, it was an addiction for me. Cocaine, which I thought I would never do before, and all of a sudden a woman came into my life and she said, try this. And because I loved her, I tried it and I liked it. And crack, I've done that as well, been addicted to that. Heroin, had addiction for that as well. LSD, basically all the drugs that could make me not feel is what I wanted more of. And so I've been physically abused, mentally abused, and sexually abused. So really the statistics now is like, I can't believe you're alive today. You know, you should not be here. And I'm here to tell you that I'm here because of Jesus and the 12 steps of recovery. So let's see. There was no love in the household. There was no hugs, I love you, son, go have a good day at school, here's your lunch type thing. You know, it was none of that. So I had to learn how to get love from the streets. So I knew what a street love was. I didn't know what agape, godly love was. I had to figure out, unfortunately, only about 14 years ago is when I figured out what agape, godly love was, by studying 1 Corinthians 13. Because I thought I was a good guy, believe it or not, to the females that I was dating at the time. What do you mean? I'm a good guy. I supported them. Everything that I thought the world says that you do for a woman is what I thought I was doing correct. And I found out that I was far from it. It was conditional. I will love you if you did this for me. I'll love you if you stand by my side while I'm in prison. I'll love you if you help me get through this. But if you didn't stand by me, then you didn't love me. And I'll show you. And so that went on for a lot of years. And in and out of incarcerations. At one point in my life, I was able to look back and say, man, I can't stay out of jail more than 6 months. And it was probably about 11 years later, in and out of the prison system. Didn't graduate school. Got my driver's license at the age of 17 and lost it at the age of 17. And just got it back 5 years ago. So I'm like a new driver, basically. Education, I got my GED while I was in prison because I couldn't stand being in the school. And then when I was in school, I was selling drugs. So you see the lack of God there was nothing, no knowing of it. And one day, I think this was an eye-opener a little bit more for me. One day I was at a temp service outside waiting to go to work, hoping to get some work. And a guy pulls up in a truck and he says, hey, you want to go to work? And I'm like, well, okay. So we head off to work and he pulls over. He says, well, we got to wait. I'm going to pull over to the side of the road. I'm a skeptic as it is because of all the situations I've been in my life. And he pulls out the Bible. He says, I always read a verse of the Bible before I start work. And I'm like, okay. Well, it's not hurting me, so I'll listen. So I heard it, and that's about it. I didn't take it in. I just heard it because I really wanted the money. Whatever you had to say about God, okay, that's fine. And then that's pretty much like a taste of a good God. So when drug addiction was taken over with me and I slept in abandoned houses, I was so bad that I was one of them guys that, like, I don't know when the last time I showered was. My socks would be standing up in the corner. I didn't change my clothes, never brushed my teeth. I didn't care about nothing. I didn't care the way I looked. The only thing I cared about is what you can do for me. And I say these things because where God has me at in my life today is amazing. I'm going to fast forward. Let's see. I had to go through the 12-step program because it was a court-ordered deal. Sign these papers. So, okay, sure. If that's going to keep me out of jail, I'll do it. Eventually, I learned how to buck the system, meaning get over on the system. So I had signatures, and I didn't go. I went to one or two. I saw these steps written up on the board, and they said, admit you're powerless, your life is unmanageable, and I'm just looking at them like, yeah, just sign my paper. So I was aware a little bit of the steps, but I didn't know enough to stay clean. So on and off throughout the years, of course, I was back on the streets, robbing, stealing, and I didn't like it. That's the strange thing. Here it is I found myself at times, I couldn't stand it. I hated myself. Because I wanted to stop, but I couldn't. I just could not put it down. When I thought I could put it down, I was around people that would use, and I'd think that I could say, man, don't use today. Let's just go do something else. And they would buy it anyway, so I would submit, and I'd go, well, if you're doing it, I might as well too. And that went into as far as relationships with women that I was involved with. If they did something, because I didn't have that love in my house, because I didn't have that love, I wanted them to love me. So whatever they were doing, I grabbed onto them and I held them. I don't care where they took me. I was waiting outside while they were in the house turning tricks, doing things with with other guys. These are my girlfriend. While they were in there doing what they're doing, I was reaping the rewards by getting the drug money. So I didn't care. That's love. That's what that was for me. So, I'm going to go back and forth. So I sponsor people. And I hear sometimes people say, you don't know, you don't know, you have no idea what my life was like. You have no idea what I've been through. And I get to say to them today, because like back then, I used to wonder, well, if there's a God out there, then why is he having me out here? Why isn't he doing something for me? How come I got to go through this? Blaming, basically. And I come to find out after I get sober is why not? So now I can help any person basically that comes across my path that tries to give me an excuse on why they can't get clean. I've been there. The only thing I haven't done is put a needle in my arm. I did crystal meth out here, and I went to jail the very next day. There's your sign. I did crimes. I never got away with it. I didn't get smacked on the wrist like you see go on probation. I went to jail. Like every time I was lifted and put incarcerated. So God was there the whole time, but I didn't see it that way. I saw that I was being punished. So, of course, when you're in jail, what do you get to see? A Bible. So I open the Bible up when I'm in my jail cell, and I see Ibith, Abith, cometh, overeth, obetheth, waith, by Jonathan, and I'm like, what is this? And I close it back up. When the humor's there, that means that people can relate, and I love it. So, of course, through the amount of incarcerations that I had, I got to learn that there was different versions of the Bible, and I got to learn the English version of it, so I can hear it word for word. And I actually started reading it, and it's not a story, it's a way of life, it's the way to live. And that's what I started to get an understanding of. I started to go to church services that were in the prison system. The pastors would come in, they would have people come into the prison systems and give me a little bit of hope that I didn't have to use no more. And of course I get out of there and I go back to it again. You know, I felt great. I'll never use again. I'll never rob nobody. I'll never do none of that stuff again. And about a week later, if I was lucky, I was back out there doing the same thing over and over again. That's that compulsiveness that's part of that program, that disease that I have. No, let alone I had anger issues. I hated the world. I hated my family. So anybody that crossed my path and did me wrong, I made sure that they knew it. And I don't like that. I didn't like that way, because even after I got done the damage that I did, I felt a little remorse. So something was inside of me. There was no just do it and didn't care. I actually did have it in my body. I just didn't know what to do with it. So in and out of the different incarcerations, someone would say, hey, start reading Psalms. Start reading Proverbs. Do one a day. Do this. Do that. Anything was better than using drugs, so I started to listen. I took the advice and started to read these things. Any direction, anything that because after all, nothing that I read in the Bible was negative. So I said, well, let's see where this goes. So I had to go back to the 12-step program, so I'd go in, I'd sit in the back, duck down, hope that nobody called my name. And of course, they called my name. And eventually I had to say, hey, my name's Mike and I'm an addict. That was so humbling. For me, that was such a hard thing to do. Because I had control of the drugs. Even though I was in the situations I was in, I was controlling, because I went from alcohol to marijuana. When the coke got too bad, I went over to the marijuana. I would micromanage my drugs, so I thought that I was in control of it. And lo and behold, I was not. It had total control of me. I found myself in the alleys with guns stuck to my stomach and talking about, give me all your stuff. And I tell them, shoot me. You're not going to get it. Who does that? You know, that's the insanity. You know, and I'm here today to tell you about it. And the only thing I managed to get out of that situation was a broken finger. Thank you, Jesus, again. He carried me. More that I got into the Bible, the more that I learned, the more I knew that he was carrying me the whole way. I just didn't want to let go and give in. So I was told that geographical change doesn't change the situations that you are. And I said, yeah, I'll show you. So I used to get money to go do tobacco runs from Jersey to another state and have to bring back cartons of cigarettes. They would give me like $2,000. Silly people. And I would go for a few times, and I would go get the tobacco. I'd bring it back. I'd have a place to stay. And eventually, I had this great idea with this girl. Look, the next time they give me this money, we're going to take his car and his money, and wherever it lands us, we'll change our lives. We're going to stop doing this stuff. And it got us to Leesburg, Florida. I ended up calling the person and said, hey, your vehicle's here. And of course, he wasn't happy about it. So I got to Leesburg, Florida, and I was broke. And there was a recovery center that fed you every day there. And it may come to me. First Baptist Church, Leesburg. And his name was Cecil Johnson. I got to remember where it started, you know, the recovery process. So I'm there eating, and I'm going, you know, and I was manipulating the system. I was manipulating the churches, you know. I need help, I need this, and, you know. So I didn't like it. I didn't like Florida. I was like, I got to go back to Jersey. Florida's too slow for me. I like the fast pace. And because I was getting taken advantage here because I didn't have a clue. They were slowing me. I mean, it was just, I just couldn't figure it out. But I was getting plenty of daily work. Back home, my convictions are so long, my incarceration records, I couldn't get a job. It was very difficult to get a job, and after all, I only had a GED. I didn't have no experience. I didn't have nothing. I knew warehouse work. That's one thing. No matter what job I did do, they loved me. I worked well. I mean, I excelled at every job. I went from a cashier to helping do the banking in the rooms at night, the deposits and everything, with a little agenda. I needed to know what you did with that money. So, I mean, but I excelled at everything there. So I had warehouse and fast food. So I come to Florida, and I'm going to the temp service. And, of course, so instead of me having to wait at 4:30 in the morning, I got so good that I already had tickets for me to go out to work. I didn't have to stand in line. But it wasn't good enough. I didn't like it here. So I manipulated the church and said someone had passed. And they gave me a ticket, a Greyhound ticket, and that's how I made it back to New Jersey. I was in Jersey for a month. I went back to my mom and dad's house, and I said, I can't take it here. I got to go back to Florida. You know, my family, I love them to death. Today we have a great relationship. They're sober. My pop still smokes weed, and that's a different story. But my mother, she's sober, and she's a provider, and everything is okay in my household. Skipping back a little bit because it's very important. In that whole concept of wanting to be loved, and I had this great idea when I was in prison that if I got out and found me a good girl and had a child, that I would never do any crimes or ever get into drugs and alcohol again. You know how well that worked? Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. So when my daughter was born, I was incarcerated at the time, and I couldn't get to see her. And the reason that I was incarcerated is because I couldn't stay off the drugs. And I wanted money. And instead of working for a living, instead of trying to get a career or trying to do something, I wanted that quick money. So I was doing whatever I could to get that money. So now I have a baby's mama who couldn't stand me because I wasn't a good dad. How dare she? And I had a daughter who I was in and out of her life. I would be there, then I wouldn't be there. I'd be there, then I wouldn't be there. And so when I left, eventually, now I'm scrambling you through the years, back and forth a little bit. And so when I make my last trip back to Florida, it was 13 years ago, almost 14 years ago. And I was there with a woman I was in a relationship with for a few years, and she gave up her kids for crack and me. So here we are in Florida, and we're in a dope area, and we ended up getting pulled over, and it was her drugs, and there was a point for some reason that it was either let her go to jail because I couldn't stand the fact that we were still doing crack. After all, we did the geographical change to Florida, or say it's mine. And for some reason, because jail's nothing to me, I mean, that's no big deal, I said it was mine. So off to jail I go in Florida. And I hear the numbers in jail that they're throwing at people for drugs, and I'm like, whoa. Oh, no, I ain't doing drugs out here, man. I'm done. And one thing led to another with that church, First Baptist Church. When I got back out of jail, I went back over there. I got out on 2 years probation. And, of course, they said, if you come out on probation, you'll go back on violation. And I said, not this time. This is a guy who never completed probation. I never completed anything up to this in my life up to this point. Always failed, always went back to prison, always did opposite because I didn't like being told what to do. I didn't like structure. And I go back to this place and they say, well, if you want to do something different about your life, then just walk around for the night, come back here in the morning. All right. So I aimlessly walk around and I come back to the church in the morning. And the guy makes a phone call, and I end up at a recovery center. It was called Spirit of Life at the time. And the pastor says, you got any money? And I'm like, no. I'm from Jersey. I don't have no family out here. Can you get any money? No, I cannot. Are you able to work? Sure. anything to get off the streets, right? And so he lets me come into the recovery center. And that was the pivoting point for me. That's what changed my whole life today. I never had friends. I never had anybody I could sit in the room with my girlfriend and not worry about them trying to take my girlfriend from me. There was a lot of nevers until I went to this recovery center. And they gave us this thing called a legacy book. And they gave us a Bible. And they said, start reading. Start doing the steps. This place is an old crack hotel. There's 4 people in a room, and it's 2 bunk beds. It's not a luxury recovery center with a pool. This is a hole. And it's either you're going to get clean or you're going to go out and use. I'm in there a month. I don't know nothing about Florida. I end up with bed bugs. I don't even know what they were. I got blisters and stuff all over me. I didn't say something in the Bible about having little things on you, lepers and all types of things happening to you because I'm trying to get clean, trying to change my life. I'm getting out of this recovery center type thing. Any reason the devil could throw at me to get me out is where I thought that was happening. The devil's coming at me. The devil's coming to get me. He wants me to leave this place. I don't need to be here. It was 100 and something degrees out. And every time, as hot as it would swell and itch. I mean, I had it everywhere. I would get on the bus, and I'd go put applications in. And I'd say, I'm never going to get hired. Look at this criminal record that I have. And the pastor said, write this on your folder for your resume before you walk into a place. You are God's child with whom he is well pleased. Okay. I wrote it down. And every time before I go into a place, I would read it because it lifted my morale. It lifted me. See, because all the drugs that I did, the chemical imbalance was definitely off. From a child, I was told that I had bipolar 2 diagnosis. I needed a psychiatrist. I had anger issues. I had all these problems. Here, take these pills. It'll help you cope. It'll help you deal with things. So that went on for a lot of years, and so I didn't take the medicine. Instead, I self-medicated with cocaine and marijuana. If I wanted to feel up, I would do this. If I wanted to feel down, I would do this. So that didn't work too well because eventually, you know where it ends you if anybody knows the drug story or friends or family that are on drugs. I started to take showers on a regular basis. I started to brush my teeth. And I owe it to that the recovery center, to the guy who got me there. But first and foremost, I owe it to God. See, because he led them. And through them, it got to me. And that's how I see that God works, is through other people. And because my relationship, that, like I said, after all, I only had a Catholic person that would take me, my grandmother, who would drag me to the church. So my definition of a God was not very much of a God. And these people started caring about me. And I go in and I say to the pastor, every time I walk in a room, I feel like people are staring. They stop talking and they start talking about me. Like, I don't know what's going on. Schizophrenia kicking in. And they said, you really think you're that important? Wow. Did he just say that? Guess what? Schizophrenia was gone. So they tell me to go to the mental health place because they felt like I did have some type of mental illness. And so I go, and of course they say, well, after I give them the honest of what's really going on, see, because the drugs and the alcohol said I had bipolar because of the lack of the chemicals. But what really they said I had was ADHD. After I really was honest with them and told them what my problems were, they said, well, you have ADHD, here, take this medicine. And I was faithfully taking it the way I was supposed to, the way it was prescribed. I wasn't taking advantage of it. I was doing what they told me to do. And I got involved with more people in the church, and some of the people in the church, that's kind of a touchy subject with some people. God made man. He made people with doctor's hands. Some people are meant to take medicine. And then there's the other half of the church that says you don't need that, you just need some Jesus in your life. So I went with I need some Jesus in my life. And to this day, I don't take any medicine. I'm okay, I think. That's funny, yeah. I have my wife, I have my boss, Ron, and I have his wife, Suzanne, who's known me for just the same amount of time I've been sober. She has her son, and him and I were in the recovery center at the same time. We're both still sober. And I recall them saying 2 of 10 will succeed, the rest will fail or die. And right now, we're the 2 of 10 that are still alive and sober to this day. I brought them up because, I could have been in the car and I could have came here a 2-hour drive by myself. But they say in the Bible about being the light. And if you're not in the light, that means you might want to check the people around you also. They might not be in the light either. And the people that are in my life today are in the light. They help me stay lit. I'm not a man that could sit. Huh?
Different kind of lit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The kind I can enjoy every day, all day, and be proud of it. The gratitude that I have for what Jesus has done in my life, I can sit down with you for hours and give you testimony after testimony. I'll give you a little bit of... So, I go through the 12 steps. They ask you they ask you qualifying questions. Are you an addict? Well, yeah, that's a no-brainer. I'm an addict. Do you want to do anything about it? Well, yeah. What are you going to do? What are you willing to do? Anything. Guess what? Anything gets me in a car 2 hours away to come up here and talk and hope that I can get someone that may need the help or go help someone and put them to my direction. I'm but a vessel. That's all I am to do today. I don't believe I did not know what my mission in life was. But now I went through a course called the Alpha Series, and I know who I am in Christ today. I may not be able to quote scriptures, but I studied that Bible so much and enough that I walk it. And you can tell when you have conversations with me, I would hope, that I follow it the best that I can, Jesus' way. When I want to know how to handle a situation, I remember reading in the Bible that the humble reap the reward. The meek will be, I'm quiet at work. Because of my anger, I've worked so hard at not being angry. I have a boss that says to me more often than not, acceptance is the answer to all of our problems. I can't stand it when he says that to me. But it's the truth, and it sinks in after a little while. I just went through something yesterday where I was ready. If I would have seen the person, I probably would have had not so many kind words to say to him, and it probably would have ended up badly. But because I have a network of light, people that follow Jesus, the people that I love hanging out with, that are my new family, my new friends, I can go and they can look at me and go, are you done? Now let's get to the solution. And the solution for me is, if you don't know the steps, it's 10, 11, and 12. So even though I want to blame him because he is totally wrong, I have to know what my part is. Could I have said something different to that person? And guess what? More often than not, I could have. I could have approached it differently. I can handle that person differently. It's that split second of not having to be able to, as in the drugs, I had to go get that. If the compulsion came along, I had to have it. Well, I'm taught to take a pause, meditate, pray about it. And if I actually can get through and do those things, which most of the time I can, and if I can't, I have my network of people that push me into it, I can get through it close to Jesus' way. I love the way that Jesus walks and talks. They say he walks amongst us. Yeah, he was just like you and I. And I'm able to do that with people. when you sponsor people, you hear some horrifying stories. They molested their family members, they killed somebody, they have never been caught for it. There's things that you would think are horrifying, and I'm not to bat an eye, and I'm supposed to just listen, because after all, in Christianity, that's what I was told. I was told that as a Christian, the best you can do is be an ear for somebody. They may not need the solution. They probably know what the answer is. They just need to have someone to talk to. Okay, I can handle that. We're good? All right. Somewhere along the line through the years, I thought that I could try again with a different woman, and I had a son. And her and I were dealing with heroin, and so I thought, let's see if I could put this in a nice way. She was a very fast woman, and I thought I could change that. I thought I was going to be that man in the shining armor, because after all, I did have some God, and I knew about recovery at that time, that I could change her. Well, she had the baby, and she was back on the streets being fast again. Here I am going through a harrowing addiction in a little 12 by 12 room with a toddler, shaking, crapping, all the withdrawals that comes with heroin, and a baby. And I found myself one day taking the baby, because I would put him down because he would cry. I'd wrap him up, put him down. I'd go to lay down, the baby would start crying again. So after a few times of him doing that, he was doing it on purpose. So I found myself one time picking him up, and I was shaking. At that point, I said, whoa, I don't want to do that. And I called my mother up, and my mother helped me, and she took custody of my son, and I went to jail. So now I have a daughter, and I have a son, no driver's license, no education, and I'm back in jail again. I find myself in the jail cell looking around again at people, and I'm going, in the jail cell, sitting there, banging my head against the wall. I don't belong here. I can't believe I'm back in here again. This is not where I want to be in life anymore. It was like hitting me. This happened before I came to Florida and changed my ways. This is a tid blast from the past. And see, because the wreckage was built and building back then. So now I have a daughter who I don't talk to. I still sporadically popped up on her. Now I got a son out there as well. And I was told that Jesus is in the business of restoring. Thank you for that word. For restoration, restoring family, for putting families back together. And that's what I wanted. I wanted that. I was told if I did the 12 steps, if I did them properly, that the promises that they tell us in them 12 steps is that we can have that and more. So I went through the 12 steps. The second step is to have an idea, this is in a nutshell, that something stronger than me, a power greater than myself, can restore me to sanity. And I said, well, my parents couldn't do it, the judges couldn't do it, and my girlfriends couldn't do it. Well, there's got to be something out there. I'm going to say, okay, I'll go along with that. Check. Yep, there's a power out there greater than myself that can restore me. And immediately went to the third step. And the third step in a nutshell is hiring a new manager. A power greater than myself. Well, that power is God, Jesus, as I know it. Because it wasn't as I know it. It was as the people who had a 98% rate of success in their life. Because if I went on mine, I wouldn't have gotten nowhere. I had to be a follower. And being a follower was to listen to the people and look at what they did so I can get what they had. Because I don't know what I have. I don't know my capabilities. So when I did that third step, it just changed. Like, no burning bush, as my wife would say. There was no, wow. But I can tell you it was a little different. It was a little relief, because that led me to learning more about God, learning more about Jesus, getting a new network of people. So then I go and I do the fourth step, and the fourth step, the amends. Of course, I heard all these horror stories. Well, if you do this, you're going to go back out. I knew so many people that wouldn't do that step 4 and that step 5. They go back out and use because they didn't want to deal with the skeletons. Well, all step 4 was I had good teachers. So God deemed fit for me to come all the way to Florida to be sponsored by a guy who was sponsored by the people that were part of making the 12 steps. I'm a hardhead, so he had to make sure he put me with the people. So I got to go through these steps at a retreat that Lyle was talking about. So as I'm going through the steps, and the fourth step, they give us a list, and all it is a list of character defects, the root cause of my madness, the root cause of my illness. And there's like 20 of them. Check, check, check twice, check 3 times, check, check, check. And then you give it to God. You admit it to somebody else, and you give it to God. I'm taking you people through the 12 steps in a matter of 20 minutes. It doesn't take much. I give you the tools. You just got to know how to use them. This is what was told to me. And here I am going through the steps. Boom, 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 boom. Through a weekend, 3 days. I had people in the meetings that had sponsors that were only on step 2 3 years later. They were still none. They weren't through the steps. They were still step 4 for a year. This retreat says you can go through the steps in 2 days, 3 days. And if you really want to, we can go through it in 4 hours. Wow, really? Well, let me get that. I need them tools. I don't want to use no more. They said the more tools that you get, the less chance you'll ever have to use again. Okay, great. There was one tool that was the sharpener of all, and that's Jesus. He sharpened every one of them tools for me. Every time it gets dusty, all I have to do is ask God. My relationship with Jesus is, hey man, you see what I'm going through today? Please help me. That's my relationship. I don't have to go down and do, this is because I was taught. This is, this can get edgy for some people. There's a certain ways that some people feel that you must do certain things. To each his own. For me, a conscious contact with God is me getting in my car, and here we go again. God, please help me, help others get to work safe. It's a regular conversation type thing. And going back to go to step 5, I may help get others, and 6 and 7, you make a list, and then you start making the list, and then you look at the people you have harmed, and guess what? Oh, man. There are so many summer homes that I robbed. There's so many people that I robbed that I can't possibly make up for it. I don't know who they are. My grandmother, she passed, the one I helped look for the money. My kids, which we'll get to that part. And they tell you make the list of these people, and you got to be willing to make these amends to people. And this is all in the Bible. This all the 12 steps is backed up by Scripture. It came from Scripture. So I had to do the research and find out what they meant by that. And I found out how the Scripture helped sculpt the 12 steps into action. So eventually I get into this. I'm going through the steps. I make the list. And I followed the instructions because they made sure they said, hey, man, don't start getting clean and think you could just call somebody up and say, I'm sorry, and think that it was going to be okay, because it's not going to work that way. It may not work that way. I said, okay. And so I didn't do it that way. I finished my steps, and they said there's maintenance steps, 10, 11, and 12. And they said, I'm going to have to do that for the rest of my life. What? I got to do the steps for the rest of my life? Come on, really? Now, it's a way of life. I don't have to think about practicing doing them. It is just who I am. I find myself working the steps with people without them realizing that I'm working the steps with them. And I don't even realize it until I step back and go, wow, I just took them and did this process with them. It's not something that I have to worry about that I'm going to have to do for the rest of my life. It is the way of life. And I'm so grateful for that. the attitude of gratitude. You know, you go to a grocery store and you got the cashier, they're silent and smug, they don't say nothing, or you get one that may say, how you doing today? I am alive, I am healthy, and I'm employed. You know how much conversation that starts up? Quick. God uses me, and I want him to use me, you know, and I find ways to try to help people because there's so many people that walk this earth that never get spoken to, and I don't like that. And God uses me to help talk to people. We got the hard heads, you know, that I am put towards them. Thank you, God. The knuckleheads, you know, the non-believers, the one that don't want to believe, and I need you to sponsor this person. Okay. You know, after doing those steps, what I tell people is I didn't know God before I did the 12 steps, but I found out the 12 steps was a side door to God. See, because I wouldn't have been able to walk through a church. So are you kidding me? All the stuff I did wrong, you think I'm going to walk through a church door? No way. But when I did the steps, it brought me to God in a different way. And once I learned that, I said, I've arrived. I love it. This is great. You know, what boss drives 2 hours to come hear one of his employees give his testimony? You know, a wife that could have stayed home and said, yeah, you go. I've got some other things to take care of. You know, that the relationship that I have today with people, the family that I have today is unspoken. So like they say, you have your godly family, and then you have the family that God puts in your life that he creates for you. I traveled all the way to Florida, and I have a family. You know, I went through the steps. In the back of my mind, I had hoped that I'd be able to get a relationship with my daughter and my son, and get a driver's license and get a job and get all these other good things. Because after all, you go through the steps and see these people owning businesses and having all this good stuff. Well, I want that stuff too. So I'm at the recovery center. I'm doing different side jobs with these people. I really still couldn't get employment. The guy said, hey, you want to help me do some roofing work? I said, well, okay, I've never done that before. The most I did at roofing was hop from roof to roof. So, of course, I did that, and that guy wanted to keep me coming. So eventually I ended up doing roofing for 4 or 5 years, and I ended up teaching people. I ended up running the business, like the second guy with the roofing. And my back went out one day. My wife had to come take me, and I couldn't do roofing no more. My next job I went to, I was doing painting. And one thing led to another. The guy said, you're at your max. I can't pay you no more. And I said, okay. See, because I remember I was told that if you just keep put one foot in front of the other and keep your head up, that things will open up for you. Things will happen for you. Mind you, I came from Jersey. I have no family here. I have nobody. But I was told if you just keep putting one foot in front of the other and keep your head up, things will happen for you. Have no fear. You hire a new manager in your third step. If you have a God, then you have all things possible that will happen for you. I can say that I still don't have a business. I don't think it's just not, God don't have it. I'm not there yet with him. Otherwise, it would have been handed to me. But the promise is that you will achieve many things beyond your wildest dreams, and God is a restorer. So I get to talking to my mother and my father, who I wanted to beat literally with a baseball bat. I held a bat to him and said, you say something else and I will kill you. This is where I was at with my father. To today, we can call each other on the phone and have normal conversation. Thank you, Jesus. He even went to the 12-step program for about 9 months and loved it, but he's from the older generation. He thinks pot is okay and there's nothing wrong with it, so he still chooses to smoke his pot. To each his own. I know I cannot. I will not try it. I don't care how legal you say it is. I just will not. I know me. I will not take that chance. And so my mother, she's so proud of me. She's like, and to hear her say that, because she's not a feeling type of woman, and she's like, I'm proud of you. You got how many years? Wow, that is so good. It's awesome. I get to mention God to her. I drop breadcrumbs to her, because there's not God in the house, But I drop the breadcrumbs, and she says, well, please pray for me. All right, cool. I'll take that. And my son, He's 18. He's 18 now, and he came out a couple times. And I like to say we have a pretty good relationship for a long-distance relationship. If my mother had a problem with him, she'd get him on the phone with me, and that boy would listen. He respected. My mother did help in that situation to make me real and effective in his life. And that's because I finally stayed steadfast, doing the right thing. My mother wouldn't have did that if she would have still seen that I was in and out of jails and still doing drugs. So my son and I have a great relationship, I believe. If he has any problems, he knows he can call me. Either I'll be going there in June or he'll be coming here, one or the other. I'll be seeing him again. I met a woman in the recovery program. They say, don't get involved in no relationships. You shouldn't do it for a year. And, I still got that rebel in me. Like, I'm going to prove you wrong type thing. And so I'm at an AA meeting, and one thing led to another. They have AA events. Who would think I could go have fun sober? Oh, I don't know how to do any of that stuff. And sure enough, I would go to picnics, barbecues, several types of different things that AA, the program, 12-step programs provide. And that's how I learned how to interact and mingle. I was starting to become a man through the 12 steps and learning about Jesus. I was just a boy, because if you hurt my feelings, I was going to come back at you somehow, because I didn't know how to handle it. So even still today, I'm still maturing. I'm still becoming a man. I still have way to go. Just ask my family. Anyway, so I meet this, I go to an AA meeting, and I noticed this woman back there, but I remember that they said don't get into a relationship for a year. And so I kind of didn't pay any attention, sort of. And checked her out. I was like, And we had an AA event to go bowling. So I'm at the bowling alley with my program, and the place, the AA meeting, is having their bowling event. So we're there, and I'm sitting down, waiting my turn, and this woman comes over, and she sits in my lap and says, "Hi, I'm Dawn." Somewhere in there, while I was at the recovery program, I'm by myself, I'm single, I don't know nothing. I'm like, God, if it's meant for me, after all, any single guy that's in a place goes, I wish I had me a woman, So, and that was one of my things, was like, God, if it's meant for me to be in a relationship, I'll let you handle it. I don't want nothing to do with it. I can't seem to get it right. And then this day, this woman sits on my lap and introduces herself. 13 years later, she's still my wife. We've been married 10 years. We went to Tennessee, went to Smoky Mountains. We had a great time, and we lived life to the fullest. I always tell people, if I go by the worldly, I will never be enough. I will never get that white picket. If anything that somebody says, well, you should have this, and you should have that. I said, no, I'm good with what I have right here. I'm quite all right. I'm content. It's good to want. It's good to have. But for me, I have to watch that line. I have to watch the ego. I have to watch and I have to watch out for the greed, those sins. I have to keep an eye on them. See, because I got a feeling that if I let it, my head can get this big, and my shoulders be like this. Look where I'm at today. I have to be careful of that, because I've seen so many before me fail because of that. It's kind of sinister that when people go back out and use and people die off, I'm like, man, thank you, in a way, because I know what not to do. I know I don't want that for my life. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. Thank you for going through that experience. Now I don't have to. And that's kind of like I piggyback off of people. Like, I'm not a follower today. I'm a leader today. And I used to lead people to jail. I used to lead people into abandoned houses. And now I help lead them to Christ. But I do it in such a way that God makes available for me so that I can do it subtly. Like, I know that I'm not meant to come at them full hard on. I'm meant to sit with them and talk just like you and I talk. And that's what helps attract. It's what seems to have worked. At work, there's like 13 employees, 12, 13 guys. And I like to say that most of them, they know my background. So guess what I am to them? Their sounding board. Who at work does that? You know, people go to work, they do their time, they go home. I know about people's lives because I make my light available. I make it available for them. Because after all, people made their life available for me. Time to wrap it up. Well, like I said, I could probably go on for hours, but I don't need people's heads going down like this and falling asleep. Which, if they haven't already started, I'm sorry if you did. Attitude of gratitude is the way that I walk my life today, and I try to do it from the time I open my eyes. I am thankful for the breath that I breathe, because if we just sat for a minute and thought about somebody else's shoes, look at the Ukraine. How dare I complain about anything in my life today? And that's what I measure. That's my measuring stick. Like if I have a pain, all I got to do is look somewhere else in my house and I see someone that stays in constant pain all day. How dare I complain about that pain? You know, it can bother me. I can vent about it, but don't live in it. If I have any problems, take it up with God. Find a way to pray. If you don't know where to start, for me, I didn't know where to start the discipline, and I still smoke cigarettes.
So do I.
But what I used to do is I used to flick them when I was done with them because I didn't care. But today, I take them and roll them up, and I actually throw them away. For me, that's a lesson. That's learning. I have to teach myself to care about what I'm doing to other people's things, where before I didn't care. Thank you for listening. I hope I didn't keep you hostage. You didn't run out. I'll be more than willing to talk to anybody outside. My phone number, my phone stays on 24/7. If you know someone that needs help, they can call me. Thank you.
All right, well, this is the part where, first of all, there's still some books and Narcan. There's other freebies up here. If you don't have a Life Recovery Bible and you want one, take one. Kurt's going to come up. So here at Recovery Church, you know, in most 12-step rooms, and we're friendly to all 12-step traditions here. And so in most, you have a chip system. We do the same thing, or at least similar, but we use crosses. And so if you want to lay something at the foot of the cross, we call it the surrender cross. Instead of a white chip, we have a surrender cross. And I don't care if it's a drug, if it's alcohol, if it's a relationship, if it's an attitude, if it's a loved one, whatever it is, if it's codependency, if it's food, whatever. If you want to lay that down, come on up. You'll be off camera, and we'll give you a surrender cross. For me, and I say this every time, it's valuable because my tendency is when I lay something at the foot of the cross and Jesus says, my yoke is easy, my burden is light, and I give it to him, I find myself going back and taking it back again and trying to do it under my own power. So having this cross in your pocket, on your keychain, or around your neck is a great tool to remind yourself throughout the week that it's not yours to carry. As Mike said, you've hired a new manager. It's his now. And if you really give it to him and remember that you gave it to him, he will be faithful to take care of it for you. So the last Saturday of each month, we have testimony night, and we also do anniversaries. So does anybody want to pick up a 30-day cross? What? Yeah, I did a surrender cross. So if you want a surrender cross, if you want to lay something down, come and pick it up. If not, we'll move on to do a 30 days. Anybody have 30 days they want to? Okay, 60 days. Good group. We're going to move on to 6 months. Anybody at 6 months? 9 months. Anybody celebrating an anniversary this month? Wow, February is not a very popular month for giving it up. So January is much more popular for that. Okay, so then what we're going to do is we will have normally, when it's not testimony night, we'll break out into men's and women's groups. But tonight we're going to enjoy some food. We're doing it here, not in the back this time, because they made a mess out of that place. So we'll be up here, and we'll be around to talk to you. And if you want some prayer, Darlene and I are available. I'm sure others are as well. And have a great time. And what did I forget? Anything? Oh, next week. Dr. Sutton will be back, and he's continuing the principle process. So he'll be speaking on principle number 3 next week. So we're going through the principles of the 12 steps with him once a month, the first Saturday of each month. And if you haven't heard Dr. Sutton, you really should be here or join us online. He's an excellent speaker, and he's a hoot and a lot of fun. So check into that. All right, thank you all.